So, what makes you a good attack helicopter? A good attack helicopter requires teamwork. A pilot is nothing without its gunner, and a gunner is nothing without its pilot. Communication is key between the two. Also, it's a matter of how you adapt to a certain situation, even when the enemy jets are dominating the air and are constantly on your tail. What is your role as a pilot? The pilot looks out for their biggest threat, spots every enemy unit he sees, lines up the sight for the gunner, engages enemy armor with guided rockets, engages enemy attack helicopters with heat seekers, evades enemy missiles by using countermeasures and breaking line of sight. He never bails out before his gunner does. You're the captain of the ship, so honor the Titanic code. What is your role as a gunner? The gunner looks out for their biggest threat, spots every enemy unit he sees, brings additional specializations that helps with the helicopters and durability, engages infantry with the cannon, helps engaging enemy armor with the cannon or TV missile and guided missile, helps engaging enemy attack helicopter with the cannon or TV missile and guided missile. In order to be successful at this, both the pilot and gunner need to communicate with each other. Before you focus on combat, you need to know what your biggest threats are. The biggest threats to the attack helicopter are enemies with laser guided missiles and jets. The reason why these are the biggest threats is because it's extremely hard to defend yourself against them. The laser guided missile destroys you in one hit. Once they've locked onto you, you will be dead in a matter of seconds. Before you can be locked on by guided missiles, you need to be laser painted by the following units: a soft lamp, a CITV station, an attack helicopter pilot with the laser painter specialization, and a scout helicopter pilot with the laser painter specialization. Once you've been laser painted, any of the following units can finish you off with one shot by their guided missile: an infantry engineer with the javelin, a tank driver with the guided shell specialization, an LAV with the guided missile specialization, an attack helicopter gunner with the guided missile specialization, a scout helicopter with the guided missile specialization, and a jet with the guided missile specialization. It is very hard to see which of these units is locking onto you, and it's just a matter of seconds before you can be destroyed by them in one hit. Since the last patch, the damage of a jet's cannon has been boosted against helicopters, so it's almost impossible to survive when an experienced jet pilot attacks you. If he doesn't kill you in the first strafe, he most likely will in the second. Other threats are of course any units who are firing at you, but these can easily be countered. The best defense is a good offense, a phrase that's often used and may sound like a cliché, however it is true. If you're able to kill an enemy that poses a threat, you don't need to worry about your defense. Let's have a look at the locking mechanism. The time it takes to lock on to the target is 2 seconds. This is the sound when an enemy is trying to lock on. Notice the flashing lock sign in the middle of the HUD. This is the sound when an enemy has locked on. Notice the lock sign in the middle of the HUD. This is the sound when an enemy has fired a missile. There are several specializations and countermeasures that can help you in your defense. To cause enemy missiles to miss or preventing them from locking onto you at all, you have two countermeasures. Flares are the first countermeasures you unlock. This specialization can also be used by the gunner. Flares causes the enemy missiles to miss their target. You use the flares once the enemy has launched his missile at you. When you deploy the flares, the missile will go after the flares instead of you, which causes them to miss the target. Flares do not work against laser guided missiles. The reloading time for the flares is 11 seconds. This is how the flares look from the outside. You would use the flares only when you haven't unlocked the ECM jammer yet or as a gunner. The ECM jammer is the most worshipped countermeasure because it prevents the enemy from locking onto the helicopter for 4.5 seconds. This is also the only countermeasure that is good against laser painters. You use the ECM jammer when the enemy is trying to lock on. It's the most effective when you use it right before the enemy is locked on. Timing is essential. The total time from when you use the ECM jammer until the enemy has relocked onto you is 6.5 seconds. The reloading time for the ECM jammer is 11 seconds. This is how the ECM Jimmer looks like from the outside. You would use the ECM Jimmer when there are many enemy laser painters with laser guided missiles. The extinguisher is a specialization that puts out the fire when a helicopter is disabled. A helicopter is disabled when its hit points are below 37. Once you are below 37, the helicopter is on fire and will keep losing hit points until you are dead. You use the extinguisher when your helicopter is disabled. Once you've used it, your hit points will be back at 37. This specialization is very underrated, but it's actually a very good one for the more advanced and skilled attack helicopter players. It's all about how you adapt to a certain situation and how you change your flying strategy. The reloading time for the extinguisher is 11 seconds. You would use the extinguisher when there are not so many laser guided missiles, but very skilled jets who keep damaging you, or ground units that damage you with anything other than normal missiles. Maintenance is a very good specialization. It allows you to recover from damage faster. Normally, once you've been hit, it takes 12.5 seconds before your helicopter automatically starts repairing itself. When you have maintenance, the helicopter will repair itself after 8.5 seconds. That's 4 seconds faster. You would use maintenance when you are being damaged a lot by enemy jets or ground units that damage you with anything other than missiles. Stealth is very useful for a good defense because it increases enemy locking time by 1.5 seconds. Normally it takes 2 seconds for the enemy to lock on. With stealth it takes 3.5 seconds. It also increases enemy tracking difficulty, which means they have to aim better to maintain the lock. And lastly, it decreases the time you reveal to the enemy from being spotted. You would use stealth when there are many enemies trying to lock onto you with normal or laser guided missiles. The last specialization that helps you in your defense is below radar. Below radar is a permanent upgrade and functions as a passive ability. This means you don't need to equip it in order to make it work. Below radar prevents enemy air-to-air missiles from locking onto you. This only works when you fly below an altitude of 25 as shown on the radar meter. Use this when you are being targeted by enemy jets or helicopters. When you are engaging ground troops as a pilot, you need to keep an eye out at your I-beam, or as someone else described it more technically, the flight path marker. It indicates the direction you're heading. When you increase throttle, the flight path marker moves up. When you decrease throttle, the flight path marker moves down. When you roll left, it moves to the left. And when you roll right, it moves to the right. When you are moving in a certain direction and you want to fire a rocket, that rocket's trajectory is influenced by the helicopter's directional movement, which means that the rocket will not hit where your crosshair was aiming at, but will hit near the flight path marker. When you roll towards a certain direction and fire rockets, you notice that the rockets hit near the flight path marker. When you aim your crosshair at the target and fire the rockets, you notice that the rockets miss their target more often because they are influenced by the sideways movement. When engaging a tank and you're not able to kill them in one pass, make sure you turn around above the tank so that he won't be able to fire his shells at you. Your gunner will most likely finish him off. If you want to engage enemies from a large distance, I recommend you equip the guided rocket specialization. The guided rocket specialization increases accuracy because the rockets guide themselves towards the target. This is very effective at long range, but I wouldn't use it at close range because then the targets are easier to hit. For a gunner it's very simple. You use your cannon to engage enemy infantry. If you want to engage enemy armor from a large distance, use your guided missile or TV missile. But once you come close to the enemy armor, switch over to your cannon because this beast is very powerful at close range. When you engage air units, you need your heat seeker specialization. Heat seekers lock onto and track the enemy aircraft. When you are locked onto the enemy, do not fire both missiles at once. Fire only one missile and wait for the enemy to use flares. Once you've acquired your lock again, fire your second missile. Using this technique will make your second missile go to waste when they deploy flares. and allows you to kill the enemy faster. However, do not use this technique when you are close to an enemy. Just fire bulb missiles when you are close to them, because they won't be fast enough to deploy their flares. This comes in very handy when an enemy jet is flying towards you. You simply acquire the lock and wait until he is close enough and then fire your rockets. He won't have enough time to deploy his flares, which will result in his death. When facing an enemy attack helicopter, flying below radar is very useful. Make sure you are facing the enemy helicopter and start flying backwards while maintaining altitude. He won't be able to lock onto you, so you will have a better defense and a bigger chance to win the duel. If the enemy helicopter also flies below radar, I'd recommend you switch over to your rockets. As a gunner, help your pilot with the cannon. You will win the battle when you just shred the enemy attack helicopter to pieces at close range, and if you're lucky you will shoot both pilot and gunner out their cockpit. Do not focus on enemy jets. You won't be able to kill them because they're just too fast. Keep your eyes on the ground and make sure you spot your biggest threat. So why is the ECM jammer so worshipped by the battlefield community? Because if you would combine it with stealth, it gives you the greatest survivability against the laser painter and its deadly laser guided missiles. With stealth, it takes the laser painter 3.5 seconds to lock on. The ECM jammer prevents the enemy from locking onto you for 4.5 seconds. Now, if you would use the ECM jammer the last second before they acquire a lock, there will be 3.5 minus 1 is 2.5 plus 4.5 is 7. So you will prevent the enemy from locking onto you for 7 seconds. Now isn't that just sexy?